Welcome to video 2 of my 10-part weight loss series. If you haven't watched the introduction video 1, then go back and watch them now. But otherwise, stick with me because what I'm going to talk about today is why dieting doesn't work. That probably sounds a bit crazy when I'm talking all about weight loss, but I'm going to explain to you why. We know about 45 million Americans diet every year. They often promise these kind of like speedy solutions. They often sound too good to be true and are based on very flimsy scientific evidence. Well, they usually are too good to be true. And I'm going to tell you why I really don't think you should diet at all. Sounds crazy, right? Let's find out why. Okay, the first reason I don't think dieting works is because these diets, especially fad diets, are not sustainable for the long term. So they're based on short-term goals, and what you end up doing is restricting your diet, often excessive things, removing food groups and nutrients, and it's only short-term. So you end up yo-yo dieting, or what we call weight cycling. You get a bit fed up as well because you're losing weight and you're putting on weight. And is that good in the long run? No. So I always say to patients is, think to yourself, is this something I can do forever? Because if the answer is no, then it's not going to work in the long run. So the changes you have to do have got to be long-term changes, which is my first reason why dieting doesn't work. Okay, the second reason I think diets don't work is because they're often nutritionally imbalanced, so they don't have a good balance. Often they'll say things like, cut out carbs or cut out fat completely from your diet. And actually what we, always been told, really a balanced diet is important because otherwise it can lead to nutritional deficiencies, which then itself can lead to health problems or even electrolyte imbalances. For example, things like Atkins or keto diet cut out so much fiber from the diet that it can lead to digestive problems. The next reason, and this is a really big one, is that it can negatively impact your metabolism. Now, a lot of people who carry extra weight often say things like, my metabolism's really slow, and perhaps it's because of previous yo-yo dieting, and especially when you lose weight really quickly. So what happens when you lose weight is that your resting metabolic rate drops because your body needs less energy for a smaller you. Think about it a bit like a house needing less heating if it's a much smaller house. So your body has to adapt to these changes and the resting metabolic rate can change, but it changes over time and it changes slowly. But if you have yo-yo dieting or extreme fast weight loss, then things can negatively take a turn for the worse. There was a really interesting study from the TV show The Biggest Loser, which you may have heard of, where people were encouraged to lose as much weight as they can as quickly as they can. And when this study was done, they looked back and nearly everyone had put the weight back on and they were actually even hungrier than they were when they were initially bigger. So in order to understand what has gone on here, it's important to learn about a hormone called leptin, which is known as the satiety hormone because it makes you feel satisfied. And actually this yo-yo dieting or extreme sudden weight loss can lead to something called leptin resistance. Now I'll try and draw it to help you understand a little bit about what I mean. So I'm not an artist, so let's keep it simple. So leptin is produced by adipose cells, which are essentially fat cells. So when you've got these large fat cells, then this produces lots of leptin. This then tells the brain that there's enough energy on board. So the brain then reduces your appetite. So you end up being less hungry, eating less, taking on less calories. When you lose weight and those fat cells are smaller, you have less leptin. So this tells your brain that you need more energy. And the brain responds by increasing your appetite. So that's very simply put of what happens. And so in the version of The Biggest Loser, if this is their weight and this is over time, when they looked at 6 years, so they kind of lost weight very quickly and nearly all of them over time put the weight back on. But what was interesting is that as you would expect to happen, their leptin levels dropped as they lost weight because they were smaller bodies, but they stayed low, which means that even though they're in bigger bodies, they're still hungry like they should be if they were in smaller bodies. So it's even harder to try and lose the weight. So that's a really good reason why it's much better to try and think of not dieting, especially not yo-yo dieting and especially not extreme dieting. The next reason is because of health risks. Now, I've already mentioned that kind of ruling out complete nutritional food groups can be unhealthy, but also lots of these fad diets include things like untested, unscientific supplements or kind of crazy diets. And actually this can not only just be generally unhealthy, but can lead to things like heart problems or electrolyte imbalances. So it can actually be dangerous. Okay, another reason is lack of individualization. So you'll often hear like, this is the one diet that you need for you. This is the one and only secret way to melt that belly fat. And it sounds too good to be true because it is too good to be true. There is not one diet that suits everyone. It's not a one size fits all. What we do know, and studies have shown time and time again, is the best diet for someone to be on is the one that they can afford and that they will stick to and hopefully enjoy. So that's why these fad diets don't work. They're short-termist and they assume that everyone is exactly the same. The next reason is probably my most important reason why I do not suggest people diet. I don't really like the term kind of dieting because for me it suggests it's a short-term thing, whereas I think you need to be focused on long-term lifestyle changes. And the reason of this is because of the psychological impact it can have. And I see this day in, day out with patients who have been struggling for years, probably their entire lives, with weight and trying to lose weight and putting the weight back on, feeling frustrated. And what this can cause is real kind of a negative relationship with food. So instead of kind of enjoying food, they're worrying about it, they're measuring it, they're nervous about eating out, they're worried about going to a friend's house, they're checking calories, they're feeling guilty about it, instead of enjoying food. And this over the long term leads to kind of like almost a fear of food, which is a shame because food is wonderful, isn't it? I mean, we should be able to enjoy food. And I think this is really important because when we think about being healthy, which is obviously what I as a doctor aspire for my patients to become, I'm not just talking about their healthy heart or their healthy gut, because a healthy mind and kind of thinking about your mental health is just as important. So that's, I think, one of the most important reasons why thinking about dieting, especially fad diets, isn't a good idea. Okay, so excuse the pun, but hopefully I've given you some food for thought why generally dieting isn't a good idea. So chuck the diet books in the bin, forget about the social media promises of burning belly fat in 3 weeks, etc., etc. And instead, well, watch the rest of my videos actually. Go back and watch those if you haven't and look for the rest of them, because in this 10-part series, what I'm going to teach you is how to lose weight for life and remain healthy, which includes a healthy relationship with food. So we can just think about your whole well-being, not just how you look in a bikini. So I hope you found that really helpful. Do look out for the other videos and I'll see you again soon. Ultra-processed food. You think it's your junk food, it's your takeaways, it's your fast food, but actually there is a hidden truth about ultra-processed food, and I'm going to share that with you in this video.